What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
How's it going?
To the middle, left in front of me, Zachary Parks.
Hello.
Hello. And joining us once again for the first time in a very long time, like over a year, Dylan Biles.
What's up, everyone?
Woo! Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Author of If No One Has Heard It, you need to go back and listen to the Moment with Mogan rap that Dylan made.
Gosh.
So he contributed that wonderful bit of music to our lives.
But I didn't even think about the fact that it wasn't evergreen because they did eventually make a Zelda game, so I didn't really use it anymore.
I did realize that. Like I was listening to it, I was like, "Oh, damn, we got to get updated lyrics."
You can't build in your own dating.
I
You have to
know.
leave it ambiguous.
Rookie mistake.
It's all right. But in case you did not know, Team Chat Podcast is a video game podcast where we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. You want to get in contact with us? Well, send us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and iTunes channels. If you want to support the show, you can do that as well by going to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show, and in return, we will give you cool perks, like getting the episodes early before its general Tuesday release, and access to our private Discord server.
There's a lot of stuff going on there.
A lot of stuff going on over there. Dylan's a part of it.
Awesome
He can
stuff.
tell you. It's fun.
Dylan, awesome.
Also, that's the first time I've gotten to witness this little thing live, so that was a real
Really?
treat
Oh yeah,
for me.
because first time you came, we weren't videoing yet. So
that's
so it's a whole new spiel for him. It's a whole new show.
Wow.
Yeah.
For real, you guys you're all grown up.
I know. We're just building up and improving. It's
We're almost
great. It's
100.
wonderful.
You got a haircut. Time has
did.
passed.
Yeah, we'll get to some more fun Dylan news in a second. But we do have our song contest for this week, and we have a winner.
Did
song
I get it
contest
right?
from last week
No.
was The Real Adventures Under Sea, given to us by Dylan. And the game was Echo the Dolphin.
I didn't even listen to the track.
I mean, it was a pretty solid guess, unless I was hoping that he was like pulling a fast one. It was like an adaptation of The Little Mermaid, which would have been hilarious. But
I
Echo the
didn't even.
Dolphin.
I was like, what do I know that's underwater? Echo the Dolphin.
It was so funny. Like 5 seconds after you said or you mentioned the clue, it was just like boom, there it was.
Echo
And I was
the
like, all
Dolphin.
right, I got to make this a little more difficult next time.
It's all good. It was a fun one, and that was actually a really good song too. I hadn't really listened to that soundtrack at all.
It's a great game.
Something to be said about those old, chiptune.
I would be happy to make any additional commentary about it, but A, I didn't listen to the track. B, I've never played the game.
Well, I haven't
I
played
just
the game either.
guessed out of the
The
blue.
game was awesome, but I remember that being the first game that I remember people talking about the music specifically being awesome. And it was because it was the 8. I mean, there's memorable 8-bit music.
I do
but
know that Echo is famous for its last boss. Like the final boss in Echo the Dolphin is like historically very disturbing for a dolphin game that takes place underwater and like just.
Do you get caught in a tuna fisherman's net?
No, it's like you should look it up. It's crazy. A tuna fisherman's net.
That's a real problem dolphins
Keep
face.
your thoughts to yourself, Jared. Anyways, no, that's not what it is.
Fine. But we do have a hint for this week's song contest given to us by Michael Sandoval, so stick around to the end of the episode for that.
I was about to say, I don't have to think of one now, do I?
No,
I didn't think I was
you got
right.
a whole week.
Yes.
All right. Well, Dylan is back with us over a year. Some major life events have happened for you, which is part of what today's topic, the inspiration of today's topic, came from.
I assume you're talking about my multi-platinum rap career.
Yes.
Since the last time that I was here, I got married.
Woo!
So ring for the camera. What's up? I got married. My wife Sabrina. We got married in June. So pretty exciting. And I was thinking about one random day. I was thinking about what topic could I do on the next time I'm on the podcast, and I thought we'd do a wedding themed.
Nice.
Topic here. So we'll do something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And as we get to each of them, I'll explain what they are.
That's awesome. So yeah,
Wait,
you sent me
why
this topic.
is this wedding themed?
That's the old wedding thing. Like every bride is supposed to wear something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. It's like the tradition.
This loser wouldn't
Yeah.
know.
I was
Look
like, when
at
you
him.
said it was wedding themed, like, oh no, I have like the wrong topic. I'm like, oh my god, I can't hear you guys very well. You're going in and out.
And he just disconnects from the call. He's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not putting on this charade. Oh man. So the first one then we want to do. Which of the 4 do you want to do first?
Well, let's just go in orders. Let's
Yeah,
start
we
with
have to go in order.
Okay,
with
that's
the
what I figured
rhyme.
we would do.
God, Jared.
That's what I figured. That's how I have it written down on here. So, we'll just go with the first one. So something old then, right?
Yeah, something old. So this was the idea here is what's your favorite game that you remember playing on the very first console or very first system, or like the first game you remember? Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be your favorite game, but like the first one on the first console or PC, if that's where you were
Ooh, I gotta
gaming
change
or
my
whatever
answer.
that you remember playing.
Zach, start us off. Go.
All right. I'm so interested in this topic, actually, because my gaming history, as I explained in the first episode, while it did start on a PC, I don't really consider my first gaming console to be until I got the Nintendo 64. And
very nice.
I was going to stick with the N64. If I talked about PC, it would have been Medal of Honor or Need for Speed. Those would have been or The Sims, or those would have been, or Roller Coaster Tycoon, maybe. Those would have been the options I would have gone with there. But I chose instead to do the N64 because that felt like my first real dive into video game territory. And I've talked about a couple games on here before, like Super Mario 64, which we did a whole episode on.
Right.
That was obviously a huge game that I played. That was one of my favorites. So was Mario Party. That was another big one, also one of my favorites. But the very first game that I ever got. So I remember. I won't go into the story too much, but basically, me and my mom. I'm like 10 or something. I can't something like that. Maybe even younger. I went to this fellow's house, he was like, it was me and my mom. Me and my mom went there. I didn't walk over there.
You make it sound like a drug deal. I went to this fellow's house.
I hitchhiked over to this guy's house, and he was like, just had things. He just had I remember he had swords everywhere.
Nice.
He had swords and shields. He was into close combat fighting, I suppose, or collecting swords. And we couldn't find. I really wanted a Nintendo 64. And we couldn't find one anywhere, and he had one. So we basically, before Craigslist, we got it from him. Right? It's like a Craigslist.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
and,
so it was a drug deal, but for the Nintendo.
Exactly. I'm sure there's drugs in there. That'd be funny. Anyways. He had two games for me. He's like, all right, I can give you one of these two games. Which game do you want? And it was Mario 64, which I did not take. Instead, I took Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Which was one of the best games of all time. I absolutely loved that game, and I never regretted my decision. I mean, I kind of did because Super Mario 64 is a better game. But Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey was a fantastic sports games. And I don't really particularly like sports games that much.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went through my FIFA and Madden and NCAA phase, but Wayne Gretzky was in the same vein as there's the old basketball game called Hang Time, I believe. Did anyone play that game?
No.
I don't remember
No.
Hang Time.
Hang Time, yeah. And it was, and basically the point of Hang Time and Wayne Gretzky and NBA Street, that's another later rendition, kind of is, it's more arcade than simulation.
Oh, okay.
And Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey was arcade in just every possible way. I looked at some videos today to kind of refamiliarize myself. It certainly doesn't look like it's aged that well, but that doesn't really matter because what I remember about the game is the mechanics, and it had one of the most fluid, dynamic 3v3 multiplayer experiences that I could find. And of course, I wouldn't phrase it like that when I was a child. What I really liked about it was I hit a puck and it lit the goal on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
That was the fantastic part about it, was the fact that I could light the goals on fire, the fact that you can get in fist fights in the middle of a game if you check somebody too hard, which I thought was just fantastic. And the fact that
You could make
score
people's
that
heads
it would be
bleed.
Oh,
What's
could
that?
you
I think you
really?
could make people's heads bleed on the ice.
That's amazing.
Oh, could you?
I
You
think
probably
so.
could. There was certainly a check button to check people, so there was certainly people flipping and flying around, and but back to sort of actually the gameplay of it. I remember it was in the same sort of way that I'd played Mario Party or GoldenEye. Wayne Gretzky was in a lot of ways just as fun. It was really fast paced, and it required a lot of the simplest way is a lot of passing. It required a lot of movement. It wasn't that easy to get a goal. I mean, again, the score would be 12-10 at the end, so that you scored a lot.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just take the puck down and shoot and you'll probably score. There was a lot of fun to be had with how to get around the defensive team, which is hockey, right? But it again wasn't very it was much less a simulation, much more of an arcade. And I have just wonderful memories of playing that by myself versus the computer, but also taking it to friends' houses and playing it at friends' houses. And all of us were talking about what a fun game this is, what a great multiplayer experience. Because also it was one screen; it wasn't a split screen. So it's like
really?
Smash Bros.
Okay.
So you could see the whole.
So
what do they call it?
similar
Arena? rink,
probably,
skating
but similar
rink?
to like the games of today, because I feel like Madden split screen. I don't play
Madden, the play selection is split screen, but you're playing it on the same screen.
That's right. And same with
Really?
FIFA and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So that must just be a common thing with sports games, I guess.
I'll be honest, like you guys don't talk about sports games very often, but
No.
but for me, like hockey games have always been the best. I mean, there's some crappy hockey games out there, but it's like the best parts of FIFA, which is a lot of people love playing the FIFA games. It's the best part of FIFA, but it's faster and it's like smaller scale and there's more hitting.
So the best part about it is that it's not soccer.
Yeah, that's
what I'm hearing.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
That's
but you're
awesome.
right. I mean, it does have that. I mean, the feeling you get of playing FIFA is kind of the same feeling you'd get from playing Wayne Gretzky, or maybe any hockey. But Wayne Gretzky is one I really played and liked a lot. Was that of getting past your opponent, and FIFA is like that. It's really just trying to get past your opponent and doing some wild trick to get into the goal. I mean, Wayne Gretzky is the exact same thing, and I think a lot of people know that game, Wayne Gretzky. I don't think that's a lesser known game.
But not as many
Probably,
people know.
I didn't play it, but I mean, I wasn't very active on the N64 either. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
And not nearly
that's
as many
just me.
people know about the questionable decisions your mom has made to help your gaming addiction. I love
know, that
getting
was
these rare glimpses into the life of Zach's mom and the
Yeah.
things she did for you.
She'll come up again for the last topic here.
Oh.
How I got another
Ooh,
game.
fancy.
Another game.
some
So
other-
yeah, that's like my favorite from my first. That was like my first game for my first console.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's pretty fun. Smoke, what is yours then?
I want
What's
you
your
to
something
guess.
old?
I want you to freaking guess.
Okay, well I'm gonna
You know
assume-
what it is.
Okay, Legend of
Spyro.
Dragoon.
Boom! Actually, no, what's funny is you're both right. Actually, on my list, I wrote down both Spyro and The Legend of Dragoon because our first family console was the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
We had a PC in our house before that, but I don't remember actually having a home computer in our house until I was maybe in third grade.
Oh, okay.
So I would have been maybe 11. So that was definitely something that came after the PlayStation 1 did. And when we had PlayStation 1, our very first games were Tekken 2, Crash Bandicoot, which are both still amazing, and Spyro and The Legend of Dragoon. And of those, I would have to rank The Legend of Dragoon as technically my favorite because you've heard about it so many
Yeah,
times.
you've talked about it the most.
But Spyro is a close contender because Spyro has everything that I love about traditional platforming games. And Spyro is just the culmination of everything that platformers should ever aspire to be.
Oh.
And really, that's about all I have to say about it. Because you've heard about The Legend of Dragoon so
We have.
much.
I feel
You've
like I've played the
already
game at
heard
this
about
point.
it all the time.
Well, that's so okay. So Legend. So Wayne Gretzky NHL for you. Legend of Dragoon.
LOD?
Okay. So mine. Let's see. The first one with semi-complicated answer with this one too. I didn't have a console until I actually moved out of my parents' house and I bought the PS3. That was my first console that I owned. But we played I had a computer before that, and we played computer games all the time on that. So if it was my first console, for the PS3, that would be Assassin's Creed 2. But
That's so recent. That
I know.
shouldn't even count.
I know, exactly.
You're
So that's why I got to go
disqualified.
old. So I'm going older than that to when probably the very first game that I really remember playing outside of Shanghai or Mahjong on the built-in game that came with the computer was this one called Battle Chess. Had it on floppy disk.
Yes, Battle Chess.
Floppy disk.
Oh, yeah.
Loved that.
Battle chess was the shit. Why? It's not just chess. No, the pieces come alive and they move, and they had wonderful death animations whenever they got captured. It was the best. Two knights squared off against each other. The winning knight, they'd slowly claim their swords, claim their shields, claim their swords, claim their shields, and then the winning knight would lop off the other one's arm. And then he'd try to hit you with his shield because he didn't have a sword anymore. You'd lop off that arm. Then he'd try kicking you. You'd lop off his legs. And then just kick him over. And that's how it was. Bishops could summon the hand of God, and the big finger would just come down and
that's
squish somebody else. Pawns would jab each other with their spears. Queen could do magic. The king could also do kind of magic too. I can't remember all the moves
but
of them
weaker
all,
magic. Way worse magic.
yeah, and so it was. But this game I'm honestly slightly surprised my parents let us play it because it was a little violent. And we were younger kids when we played it, especially because had the dismemberment of limbs. They gave it to us they knew. They knew.
Did the pieces bleed?
No, I mean it was
Oh,
cartoonish.
lame.
It was very cartoonish. So I mean,
Well, if you like took a piece with your bishop, would that other piece have a chance to like fight back and not get taken?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it had like an animation like they were going to fight, but the winning piece would always be the one who was, it was just more for show than an actual thing. So that way it wasn't just like, oh, you captured it. You could play normal chess on it too, but I mean, who wants to do that when you have the option to do all that fun stuff? So that would have to be my something old.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember Battle Chess. I think I got it like later on a computer when I was a little bit older, and I just remembered hearing about it a ton. But yeah, I loved that game. So for me, so I could go two ways with this. One is, I mean, so I'm a little older than you guys. So my first console was the original Nintendo Entertainment System. Oh. I had some friends that had or some family that had like Ataris and stuff before.
Talking about the NES? I'm
NES.
confused by his phrasing.
We called that, we just called it the Nintendo, to be honest. Like, that's all there was.
Yeah, there wasn't anything else to compare it with, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the iPhone when it came out was just the iPhone.
Right.
So for that one, but I played a lot of computer games before where you're talking like the original Carmen Sandiego and stuff like that.
Carmen Sandiego.
That stuff was fun. So, I mean, I kind of want to cheat a little bit and say for the Nintendo, that was when video games really sort of took like hold.
Right.
And for the Nintendo, Contra was the game. I mean, I played Legend of Zelda,
yeah.
I played Mario, I played Duck Hunt that came with it and everything. But Contra for me was the one that I could not stop playing. Like as a little kid, like the guns were so cool. That spread gun that would like shoot all over the place, and it was the first one that I ever remember where it was like because it's the one that has the famous code where you get 99 lives. It's up, down, left, right, BA, start. And like now it's kind of legendary, but at the time you thought you had this secret, that like no one else knew, and there was no internet to spread it around at the time. So for me, that game was the most fun to play. Especially it was fun to play if you had friends over.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But on the computer, there was this one game that it was. So this would have been before my Nintendo days. It was a text-based game, and it was for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Have you guys ever run across this?
Wow.
I didn't know this.
It was my first exposure to that universe at all, and it was the hardest game to play because you just had to guess what the computer wanted you to say. And it literally starts off with you wake up in a black room, and you have to figure out what to do. And eventually you figure out how to turn the light, but you have to do it just right. You have to move off the bed just right. You have a pounding headache. Basically, you're hungover, and you have to like find the aspirin, but you don't know that you're hungover or anything. And you get to this point where you realize there's a bulldozer outside of your house that's about to take over your house, or like take down your house, and you have to stand in front of the bulldozer just long enough for the guy to give up, and then someone comes and saves you, and you end up on a spaceship, and that's about as far as I could get. And because there was no internet, there was no way to get the answers of how to get through this. So for my entire life, that game, I had no idea what happened in it past like maybe the first quarter of the game. And then like one day I mean, years and years later, like we're talking 2005, 2006, someone had it online in an emulator, and they had all of the solutions in it. And I got to go through the whole story, and like, I kind of hated that I did. I kind of wished I had just left it not knowing.
I know.
I cheated like 25 years later.
But the statute of limitation for cheating has gone by.
We should have a discussion on how long do you have to wait before it's not cheating.
Oh, I absolutely looked up something for Legend of Zelda, the original one, on the NES Classic.
Dude,
that's a hard game.
That's a freaking hard game.
I was trying to figure out how to fight the first boss, the like dragon one, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I can't even get to the first boss. I'm like, I'm still in the forest. I don't know. Yeah, you're better than me.
One Zelda game.
One Zelda game.
Well, I highly recommend going. You can find it online now, and you can play the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text game. It is hilarious. It was so like adult, but like weird, because the whole Hitchhiker's Guide universe is really weird. Anyway, it's really cool. You should like seriously check it out, and it'll take you 30 minutes to play the game or something like that.
That's as least expected as I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like, of all the games you could have said on planet Earth, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text-based adventure game was like dead
Wouldn't
last.
even cross my radar at all.
It's because I'm real old, y'all.
All right, so to recap then, are something olds: Wayne Gretzky, NHL, hockey, Legend of Dragoon, Battle Chess, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, Dylan, why don't you then start us off with the something news?
Okay, yeah, so something new. And then for me, I was just thinking, I mean, you guys have spent a lot of time over the episodes talking about new games that you like or something. So I was just thinking something noteworthy in the last 5 years that maybe you haven't talked about yet. Or something like that.
I mean,
you don't feel. I mean, like just something that's a little newer, a little more. a little more interesting.
I thought the statute was 3 years,
Okay.
so I was on a more condensed timeline.
I mean, you can make it harder on yourself if you want.
I mean, the problem was I still had so many games that came out in like the past 3 years that I'm like, it's the best game ever. So I really didn't manage to narrow down my list very much. What I ended up with were 4 top contenders. I know that's like a really huge list.
Yeah, seriously.
But it was Splatoon. So obviously, I'm just talking about the first one.
Okay.
So the newest one is so new that I wasn't really including it. So Splatoon, Breath of the Wild, Life is Strange.
Yeah.
Made it into that top. I was like, man, that's a good game.
It really is.
And Overwatch. Because in terms of sheer playtime, Overwatch and
I
probably
didn't
Breath
think
of the
about that one.
Wild are neck and neck. Breath of the Wild, because I spend so much of it technically asleep, but like holding onto the controller so it's still counting me as active. It counts. It counts, guys.
So that's okay. So what about you then, Dylan?
So for me, I think someone, I can't remember who it was, but it's been mentioned on the show before, but Transistor was the one that I just like felt was like an interesting game. It like scratched that, it's not a platformer exactly, but it kind of scratched that itch for me, like a little older school kind of feel to it. But I just love the aesthetic of it and like the power-up system where you get the chips and everything going. I don't know, there was just something about the aesthetics of that game. And it was another one that I got like,
It was a PS Plus.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
PS
sure.
Plus one.
Because I have it too, but the
okay.
same. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I really like loved it. It was just one of those that it took no effort for me to just kind of sink into it for a few hours over at a time for a few weeks. So for me, that was like the one that it wasn't like anime, but it wasn't and it wasn't like cyberpunk, but it was kind of like in that sort of vein a little bit.
That's kind of Supergiant's like main look, because like they did this game too, Bastion, which if you haven't played that one yet, you need to.
Is that cool?
Oh god, it's so good, but it's the same kind of way. It's
Can't
like,
you tell just by looking at the poster?
it's like anime,
really cool.
It's like anime-esque, but not. And then the same thing, even with their newest game, Pyre, which is another one you should check out. Like I need to play Transistor because I love their other 2 games, so why would I not like it? But Pyre is the very same way, in the same art style, because it's also like the characters look not as anime-ish really in that one, but it just has the very same like very vibrant, colorful colors. I know Transistor though is a little bit gloomier, but like the main character has the very vibrant red hair, and the almost. You're right, almost steampunkish because she has like a Victorian style dress or something, but then she's fighting with a sword that looks like a computer chip. So it's a very interesting game in how it looks. So yeah, I didn't even make my way around to that one.
And it does feel a little bit like a director's first movie, or like, it has a little bit of that feel where it's sort of your, the first swing at something, but you can tell that there's something there.
You can see where they're going. Like you get the gist.
Totally. But I loved it. I thought it was a really fun game.
Man, that's a good one too. I need to play that one real bad. But yeah, definitely. Bastion and Bastion you can get for basically anything now. I think it's like even iOS. I think you can play it on.
Right.
Really?
I wouldn't necessarily recommend that way of playing it though. Like I played it on the Mac and it was fun on there, but now they have a PS4, PS Vita. It's everywhere. And then Pyre just came out a month ago about. So yeah, and I just finished that one up a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago, and it was real good.
Awesome.
So my something new, then I would say, I didn't think about some of those, like obviously if it was in the last 5 years, it'd be The Last of Us, but I've talked about The Last of Us a lot. But I didn't even think about Overwatch, because that's a really good point you're saying about basic just like playable hours of replayability. And today I was even playing it. We talked about it a little bit on the Discord, but today they rolled out for the consoles. They rolled out the new Team Deathmatch and Deathmatch modes.
Oh, I did get to play a little bit of the new Deathmatch mode. We should talk about that later because it's awesome.
It's so much fun. But so here I am, like over a year out, they're providing a new play style and a new way that you can play. Not to mention the new updating of the continuous updating of the heroes. So man, I should have thought about that one. But I have to give this one to Horizon Zero Dawn though. Came out this year, but I got to give it to that game.
Nice.
But then also, I was conflicted because of Life is Strange too.
It's so good, Zach. You got to finish it. You got to play the rest of it, man.
I do finish episode 1. I still haven't finished episode 1.
I swear to God, Zach.
So I tweeted out.
I'm close though.
I tweeted out yesterday that I'm finally trying to partly because of this topic, and then just because of Life is Strange, thinking about like, man, that was such a good game. Trying to like put together my top 10, expand it from my top 3 to top 10, because I was for a minute there, I was like, does Life is Strange hit the top 3? Like,
see, it definitely doesn't for me.
It doesn't for me either.
But it's really like up there, floating close to the top.
Yeah,
wow, really?
That's how I am too about it too. Like,
you gotta play it, man. You gotta play it.
Quite honestly, like the game ended. Sam was already home from work when I was finishing it up yesterday, and I just kind of like It hit almost, not quite, but I had a very strong emotional reaction to it that I have not had with a game since Last of Us.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It like stays with you.
I
even had like some nightmares about tornadoes and junk, and I was like, "Oh no, it's happening!"
I couldn't stop thinking about it for the rest of the day, and like I was like reading reviews and everything, even though I just finished the game. But still,
even though it's 3 years old, we got to get those reviews.
I gotta know what they thought. But no, Horizon Zero Dawn, just for the take, and especially what I've said before with the transition from Guerrilla Games, where they had been making the Killzone series, transitioning to this brand new IP. A massive undertaking than anything else the Killzone games had been, because Killzone games are first-person shooter. Those are generally shorter games. Moving into a full open-world RPG action-adventure game, the pure undertaking of it and how well they pulled it off in creating strong characters, strong environments, strong enemies, all this that I've talked before, an incredibly well-crafted story. It had, hands down, that's where I had to pick for myself something new. So.
Nice. I kind of expected that.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I was expecting. But yeah, that was kind of like one of the ones that I was like, it's probably going to be up there in the top.
It's just so damn good.
It probably is.
So Zach, what's your something new?
So I couldn't think of a game in the last 3 to 5 years that I don't think I haven't talked about. There probably is something. Either it's not worth mentioning or I forgot. But every game that I was thinking of, I've talked about. So I'm going to revisit it a little bit. And I just want to. Can Mogan guess what it is real quick?
Is it Metal Gear?
Oh, wow. I didn't think about
on,
that.
I love Metal Gear.
Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is then. If you wanted her to guess, it's Firewatch.
It's Firewatch.
I wouldn't have guessed it. I honestly wouldn't have. But man, so as we're talking, I keep thinking up more to add to my something new. I've added about 3 more games.
This is why I wanted to make a top 10 list.
Yeah, Metal Gear would have been. I mean, that, and I've talked about this summer.
Never mind. Metal Gear's chump change. Talk about Firewatch.
Yes, I should talk about. Well, I've talked about Firewatch on. I forget what episode it was. Obviously, you did a full review on it, didn't you, Mogan? I believe.
Yeah.
Did we do?
Yep.
It's been so long. We're so old now.
And speaking of old, that's one of the things I was going to talk about. It as I get older as a gamer, I really feel like my scope of taste has gotten much narrower. Mm-hmm. And a game like Firewatch, and Mogan recommending it, it's a great example of what the kind of games that I want to play more of. And Life is Strange, I think, is in that same realm.
I would think
sort of atmospheric stories and less action, less technical stuff happening like Halo, which obviously I love, and like there's specific reasons that I love those kind of games. But as I get older, I find more merit in games like Firewatch and Life is Strange. And Firewatch is just, I don't know if it was the timing for it. It was just one of those games that through Mogan's recommendation entered my life at a very good time. I wish I could forget that game.
Kudos to me, guys.
Pat myself on the back.
Pat myself on the back.
I wish I could go back, forget that game, and play it again. It's one of, I wish I didn't already play it and I had the experience all over, because it was such for me, I thought a really mature way to approach video games. And obviously it's not the first to do it, but I think it was the first that got me sucked in the way like you just were talking about. I got really emotionally invested in such a simple concept, and obviously the graphics of it, like the art direction of it, was phenomenal. I loved the way they approached the style. I loved the way they approached dialogue, and how just the simple idea that you had a timer before you could say something, and if you didn't say anything, that was a choice, and that really is real. Or it felt real to me. And the relationship you build, and the whole sort of side mystery that's going on, which honestly, as good as that was, that's kind of in the back burner for me when it compares to just having a conversation with what's her name again?
Mogan?
Delilah, that's right, in the other tower. And it was just so well done and subtle. I think that's a very subtle game to have. I really highly recommend it for anybody that wants to play a little short story.
Absolutely. And even with the kind of side mystery you were talking about, I feel like Firewatch did an amazing job of making just one situation feel very, very impactful, because I don't want to I know it's not new, but I don't want to spoil it for
because
anybody
it's definitely
that
on my
hasn't-
radar.
Yeah, I don't
Same
want to
here.
spoil it for anybody that hasn't played it yet. But essentially, you're kind of not really, but sort of investigating the disappearance of a kid. You're definitely not actively investigating that. But
Right.
you keep
You're not
kind
hired
of,
to.
Yeah, no, that's not what you're out there for, clearly, because it takes you months to figure it out. But when you eventually do, the result that you discover is so, I remember, Zach, when I was walking through the caves, really close to the end of the game, and you finally kind of came upon the resolution that you had sort of been hinting towards the whole time. I just kind of stopped. I stopped my whole character, and I looked at the clues, and I was like, oh no, I know exactly where this is going. And when it finally did kind of play out in the game, I was like, no. And it had really did have a huge emotional impact that was really only condensed to maximum 4 people.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you can take a game like I don't know what, The Last of Us, where literally almost 100% of people are dead. Great, I don't care about that, but I care about that one tiny subset of people that Firewatch focused on, because it made their experience so personal and it made it have such a gravity to it.
Right.
Man, that one's in the list now too. Damn it.
It's great. It's so good. I love that game, and I want to play other games like it. That it kind of introduced me to a whole genre that I'm not fully immersed in.
I think go into what you say about how your taste kind of narrow over time. That's the thing for me about games over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, that the ones that really stick with me are the ones that have some emotional impact. And so Last of Us is a great one. I mean, this is the Firewatch is one that, since you guys have talked about it, it's been in the back of my mind. I got to get to that game because of the way you guys talked about it. Yeah,
it's so good.
Red Dead Redemption is another one that has an emotional impact to it. You know what I mean? And those are the things that really stick with me. And it's the same with me, Zach. Those are the kinds of games that I want to invest my time in.
We're just so mature, guys.
We really are.
Well, because at the end of the day, the games like Halo, the games like Call of Duty, especially when the majority of what you're spending on those is the multiplayer, that, for what it is, eventually does become a rinse and repeat. You pick up the new first person shooter. Well, it's still a first person shooter kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas these stories like Life is Strange, Firewatch, and Last of Us have this way of reinventing what the video game is and how it's presented and how the story comes across to everybody. So that's why, for me too, and what's weird is, as I agree with you, Zach, a couple of years ago, when it came out, I probably wouldn't have given Life is Strange another thought. I would have been nah,
You're
not for me.
branching out into the broader world
I know,
of gaming.
and it's great. And I'm definitely, because of how well this game was, I'm not gonna write off episodic games, especially for one. Well, I mean, I pre-ordered Before the Storm, so it comes
it's
out
the
tomorrow.
complete game, though.
No, it's episodes also.
Oh no! Okay, I gotta wait. I gotta wait until it's all 3 of them.
No,
then
I wanted to try it out and see how much I would
Sick.
enjoy it for. It's only 3 episodes though.
Yeah, I know, but still,
But-
I hate the waiting.
Are they going to come out once a month?
Yeah,
or,
something like
Once
that.
a month?
Yeah.
I have to wait 3 months.
That's what the Telltale games
I don't
do too.
like.
Yeah.
This is my primary complaint
But I
against
wanted
episodic gaming.
So I loved Life is Strange and it had that, but I wanted to experience it in the real, how it would be. So that's why I kind of wanted to do
Well,
it.
that's a good point.
So see if it would have the same impact, or if I would be like, what? No, I got to know now.
No, right now. Because, man, every time I finished I call them chapters because I'm that person. Every time I finished a new chapter in Life is Strange, I was like, I have to start the next one immediately right now.
Oh, yesterday when I finished the game, I was it had the last 10% of episode 4 to do, and I was not planning at all to finish the game.
Yeah.
And I finished that, I wrapped it up, and I was like, well, I cannot stop now.
See, that's the thing.
And
I
that just
finished
powered through
chapter
the game.
4 over the weekend when it was really storming really hard, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. And then chapter 4 ended, and I was like, I'm not going to bed.
You have to end it right
I'm
then.
going to stay up all night, and I finished chapter 5 in one sitting because I was like, I have to know.
Nice. So let's move on then to our Something Borrowed. Dylan, why don't you kick this one off for us?
Yeah. So Something Borrowed. In this one, I just kind of wanted to for me, this is one of my favorite parts of, especially when I was a kid playing games, was the way you like traded games with your friends, and like, you know, I had a game that my friend didn't have, and so we would swap them out. Or like when you're spending the night at a buddy's place and they've got a game you haven't played. Like, so those are some of my favorite video gaming memories. And so for this one, for something borrowed, a game that you loved that you remember borrowing from someone, or that you played at someone else's house, or you never owned the game itself but you played it. And for me, that game is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! I don't know if you guys ever played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! That game ruled, especially when you were like 10 years old. And that game, Mike Tyson was like larger than life in the world anyway. And it was before any of his troubles.
It's true.
But he, like, the thing that was so cool about that game was that every single one of the fighters that you fought against, you were, you know, you had to have like a special trick to do each one. And again, this is before the internet, so it was, you know, it was like tribal knowledge that would get passed around, you know, and like this person would know how to beat King, or what was it? I can't even remember the name. There was the King Cobra, or and Glass Joe, and like there was all these different ones, all the way up to Mike Tyson, and it was the most triumphant moment that I've ever had. I didn't even have the controller in my hand, but it's me and my buddy Michael Keeney. I remember we're sitting in his room playing the game. We were standing because he was fighting Mike Tyson at the end. We had gotten that far, and he was just, it's like when you're playing a game and you're just like riding by the seat of your pants, you know what I mean? Like you have no idea how you're going to be able to keep it up, but you just managed to pull it off and go fast enough to get the job done. And Mike Tyson went down for the count, and we stood up, we hugged, we were screaming. Like, I mean, it was the most amazing moment. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I've had a video game moment top that, watching another person beat Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! So that one's mine.
That's the glory
awesome.
of like
I've heard that's like impossible.
I mean, people say that, but I watched it happen. Like, it definitely happened.
Experienced the miracle.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The beauty of video games.
Yeah.
I know, bringing people together every single day.
It brings a tear to my eye.
Sup, Jax?
We have a
Neighbor kid likes to come check out whenever he sees my window open.
Zach, you want me to hold you up to the window?
So let's see. I'll go on next on this one. So mine, I did eventually own the game, but when we probably got into it the most and was playing it the most, would have to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Or Modern Warfare. Not Modern Warfare 4. It's Call of Duty 4. Because that game was basically, I'd played Halo with my friends before. We'd done all that, but I think we got into this one multiplayer, doing LAN parties with it more than we did with Halo. Because it just, I don't know. I played it over at my buddy's house one day. I went over to his house and we were playing. Like even though we were in the same room, he had a buddy of his that was over the internet. So we had headphones on, headsets on. And we're playing at the other side of the room on the computer. That's how we started. And then, you know, we eventually transitioned over onto playing it on the Xbox 360 or the PS3. But we would just go over and we would have like hangouts. We called them guy nights and everything, where it was just all of our friends getting hopped up on a Mountain Dew and snacks, you know.
Shame. What Mountain Dew and Doritos?
Yeah, Dorito.
Pretty much, yeah. And pizza, snacks, other snacks that our moms
Flaming
would provide.
Hot Cheetos, I assume.
All that stuff.
Sick.
And so, which I get very nostalgic for those nights. I would love to do that again. But anyway, but we wouldn't change games. We would literally just play Modern Warfare all night, and we would do different things. You know, you could always change it up and set the rules like you could with Halo and other competitive multiplayer games like that. But our favorite mode to do it was where we would only have pistol and knives. So you had to, like, you're running around, you know, combat style with like the knife under your pistol and all that stuff, and those are the only weapons you could have. You couldn't even throw grenades. You couldn't do anything. You had to do it that way. And we would play it on the shipment map, especially because it was very close quarters. It was very small, and man, we just played the hell out of that game. And then we would change it up, like snipers only, you know, all the same stuff that way. What Zach, like I'm sure you're familiar with doing with Halo, but man, just the countless hours we spent playing that game, and like all night, not sleeping, just round after round after round after round. So that one for me definitely had to be. And then finally, one of my buddies did wind up buying it for me for the Mac, actually. So boom. So that's where I spent the majority of my playtime on that one too. So yeah, it had to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Awesome.
Zach, what about you? What's your something borrowed?
Okay, so I believe I've talked about this before, But there was a game that it was we had Halo and GoldenEye, and obviously those are very separate time period games. But those are Mario Party games I've talked about. Those brought me and my friends together like in a big way. So I had 3 friends that live on my street when I was growing up, like good friends, best friends. They were like my best friends, and one of them had a GameCube, and for that GameCube, he had Resident Evil.
I swear,
I believe I've talked about this before. It's the
I thought for
remake of the
sure you were going to say
original
Kirby
Resident
Air Ride, the most
What's
famous
that?
Kirby Air Ride, the most famous game of the GameCube experience.
Kirby
I
Air
feel like I've been gypped.
I love when we talked about Kirby Air Ride. That game like blew my mind. I was like, those maps sound huge.
Dude, one of these days I'm going to bring my GameCube and we're going to play Kirby Air Ride. It's going to be amazing.
That was a fun conversation. But anyways, we would all. So it was me and 3 other friends. So all 4 of us would go down into his unfinished basement, and so there's like wooden posts and just stuff scattered everywhere. The floor was cold concrete, and we had this little TV set up, and we had the GameCube. We had the game. We had one controller, and we'd all huddle around as we would play Resident Evil, or one of us would play, and the other 3 would watch. And I just don't think. To talk about what Dylan was talking about with like getting people together and enjoying a video game, I really don't think I've had anything that's matched that experience. Of course, I've done Smash Bros. And multiplayer games like that, which are phenomenal experiences to play together. But we all had like the same goal in this game, and that was like you do it's a single player game, so you do the campaign together, and we felt like we were all doing the same thing, but none of us wanted to play it. I mean, we were all terrified of that game. And there is something about Resident Evil. I think I went into more depth on another episode, but it's really a throwback into the horror genre of real atmosphere. Atmospheric inducing fear more than jump scares or, even playing the new Resident Evil, which I played just a little bit of, which is a fine game, but it's a little over the top for me. I really missed just walking around in that mansion and one zombie would come like down the hall. You would see it coming around the corner, but for the way the camera worked in that game, it was so frightening because it was fixed and you had no control. That probably helped induce a lot of fear. The fact that you couldn't have control of where the camera was. And anyways, that was a game we huddled around. And I'm not kidding when there was a moment when we were up in this cabin. And I think I told this story before. We were up in this cabin outside of the mansion. And we're like looking for this note. We're like looking in a fireplace. We're looking in like under a bucket or something. And we find this note about this girl that got locked up and she was there forever and she freed herself, and we're in this like corner of the house and we're like shaking like, oh, it's so this is so terrifying, like this poor girl. And outside of the window you hear her come in, or you hear her come in through the door, and you're like, oh, and like you hear that she like, has these chains that she's dragging. You kind of get a glimpse of her. She's all mutated, and we're like, we're hitting pause and we're like standing up like, oh, I'm not playing this. Someone else has to turn. There's a corner you have to turn around. Like someone else has to turn that corner. There's no way I'm turning this corner. And eventually we did it. And I remember Sean Starkey turned the corner, and right when it
Brave
happens,
soul.
it like you get hit over the head with like a club and we were just like, all of us screamed. We were all like, we were like, fuck this game. It was so scary. And so Resident Evil was just one of those games that only one of us had, but all of us got to experience together. And that was just, man, it's unfortunate that video games don't do that as much or at all anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The best experiences.
Seriously.
So good.
I don't have any that are that intense, but I do have at least 3 games/series that I have extremely fond memories of sharing. And these are both kind of in conjunction with 2 of my very first gaming pals. So, of course, my original gaming buddies would be my brother and my sister, because we all grew up on the same PlayStation. We had to share it. There was only 2 controllers. What are you going to do? But then when I finally started to get to the age where you could actually make real friendships and actually connect with other people, I had 2 friends, one of whom owned a bunch of games that I didn't, and one of whom owned no games, and I owned the games in that case. So it was like, okay, I have to go to Jesse Janae's house if I want to play these, or Sarah Moore has to come to my house so that we can play these. And these all would have been on the computer. So you've heard quite a bit about my storied and grand and wonderful history with Unreal Tournament,
Right.
the greatest series ever. So that was with Jessie Janae. So I have so many memories of going over to her house. We would go up to their bonus room. They were the type of family that had a bonus room. And I was like, you guys suck. You have a bonus room? So they had a bonus room, and I think they had an N64, and they had, of course, their family PC. And it was technically her older brother's PC. But every time he was gone, we would play Unreal Tournament and The Sims. So this is actually something that I don't think I've ever talked about before, but we played the bejesus out of The Sims. Like, so much that it was concerning. And this was like the point at which the Rosebud cheat was like the thing. You had to be able to do Rosebud to get unlimited money.
Yeah,
you had to do Rosebud, semicolon, 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 and eventually you would just get all the money. And we were like, we can have the grandest house you've ever seen. And we each had a character. Like, she made herself one and I made myself one. And of course, we weren't very imaginative. So like, we were both regular female humans. And I don't think that the original Sims had many other options aside from that. But probably the best story that we got from this is we were just two gals being pals, living in our mansion, having a grand old time. And then one day, like, we had been playing this for months and months and months. And then one day, one of our Sims comes up with like this bubble. And it's like, oh, do you want to have a baby? And we were like, yeah, sure. So our female Sims, who we did not realize had become lesbians, decided to adopt a baby together. And we were like,
that's funny.
Oh,
this is great.
Turns out they were
miracle.
lesbians the whole time.
I know, they tricked us. They were lesbians the whole time. And we were like, oh, we don't think we should tell our parents about this. Because it was Tennessee in the 90s. So we were like, we'll keep this on the DL. We're going to let them live their lives. It's going to be cool. They're going to take care of their baby real good. He's going to have a great life in his mansion with his two moms. It was just such a great day. We were like, wow, lesbians. How about that?
More you know.
Well, the more you know. It was amazing. And then the one game series that my parents really invested in me to, I suppose, try to make me smarter. I don't know if it worked, but that's, I think, was the goal. Mm-hmm. The Nancy Drew PC Mystery Adventure series.
I think they're still making those,
they
right?
They are. I still buy them. I still buy those games. They're the best. So Nancy Drew is the best investigator you've ever seen. She's better than James Bond. She's better than, I don't know, all those other people.
The Hardy Boys?
No,
she's better.
Definitely actually, not better than the Hardy Boys.
The Hardy Boys do make it into a few of her games, but they're only side characters because they're not good enough for their own game series.
Nancy Drew got introduced through the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, and then she overtook them with her mass appeal. She's so much better than those losers.
Don't even get me started on Babysitter's Club versus Sweet Valley High.
Babysitter's Club for life. Anyways, so I had the Nancy Drew PC Mystery Adventure series.
Okay.
And I remember getting the first two for, like, I think my birthday. And I was like, thanks, Mom and Dad. That's so great. Like, I was like, what do I even do with these? And then I started playing, I think it was legitimately the second game in the series, Mystery in a Haunted Mansion. And I was like, this game is amazing. I have to tell all of my friends. So, of course, I went and told Jessie. So me and Jessie would play the Nancy Drew series at home, too. But the other girl who lived in my neighborhood. So we were like wilderness buddies. Like, we would traverse the neighborhood like a roaming gang of hooligans together. That was Sarah Moore, and she would come over to my house. We would pull up an extra kitchen chair to the shared family PC and just play Nancy Drew all night. And it was so hard. Like, I don't know how much you play legitimate puzzle games. Those games were freaking hard. I tried to play the third one again recently just to see if I could do it. I was like, wow, I've gotten a lot stupider over time. I don't think I can do this anymore. And so you really did kind of need your other buddy there to be like, okay, but what if we tried this instead? Yeah. And then you also had to have someone that would take the notes because there wasn't really like the internet back then. So someone had to take the handwritten notes. We had to write down all of the puzzles. We had to figure it out together. And I have so many fiercely invested hours of playing Nancy Drew with either Jessie and Sarah Moore.
Nice.
Best times. Good times.
Nice. Awesome. All right, well, to bring it home, we have to do our Something Blue. So what is this one going to be?
So Something Blue is what is the like dirtiest, raunchiest, bluest game that you have played that you loved? Because there's been plenty of like dirty like the games that are trying to be super edgy that I just sort of hated.
Yeah.
But like there's a few that I actually just like, despite what they were, I loved them.
So what was yours?
So for me, it's GTA 3. And it's the one in the hood that has all the 90s hip hop. But my favorite thing, my brother-in-law to this day will walk around to each other, and because whenever you would go on the street and you would beat someone up and the money would fall out of their pocket and you would pick it up and he would just go, "Give me that paper." And so we still say "give me that paper" to each other all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it was. I mean, honestly, like that game today, I mean, GTA has always like pushed boundaries, but that game today, I feel like would have a tough time just because of some of the racial undertones to the game. But at the time, it was like, I don't know, for a suburban white kid, it was like the first chance I got to like identify with that subculture. I thought, you know what I mean? It was definitely an oversimplification, but I freaking loved that game, and there was no cooler feeling than just driving down the street in a stolen car, listening to Snoop Dogg blaring out of the car radio.
That's awesome.
There was like 2 or 3 songs that I remember. There was a Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg song that I would always change the radio station to every time to listen to that song, and it just made me feel like I was living that Compton life, you know?
That Compton
That's
life.
exactly what it was like.
So mine is actually on a similar vein to yours. It's Saints Row the Third. Have you played any of the
I
Saints
played
Row?
the first Saints Row game, and that's one of those that I did not like that much. I
really?
thought it was just like, for whatever reason, it was just too cartoonish or too over the top, or maybe it just felt too much like it was trying to be a GTA game. But I've heard they've gotten better as they went.
Yeah, I have 4, and I haven't played 4 yet. But 3 was my first introduction to the Saints Row series, and I fucking loved it because it was so like I got the vibes that it was definitely it's like it's GTA but not. But I definitely appreciated how much it was trying to be more over the top than GTA was.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like there's whole side quests where it's just you're trying to see how much you can destroy. Like you're driving a tank through the streets and like blowing stuff up, or how many times you can get yourself run over and different things like that. It's so crazy. And the whole like side quest, but it's like a game show in this world where it's people just go into this arena and just like start shooting at each other. But it's called like Dr. Gameji's Super Incredible something like that. And it's like got this cat mascot who's like freaked out and always like you're assuming very high. And strung out on something, and so it's just a totally just weird thing. But the thing about it is, incredibly dirty game, very raunchy. Like one of the big things about it is, and one of my favorite weapons to use, is that you got to run around with a huge purple dildo that you used at the baseball bat. And so obviously, like that leads for some interesting gameplay. But then there was this whole mission that you had to do where you get drugged, but it was to infiltrate the enemy. You get like drugged and kidnapped, and you wake up in this party house. Basically, that's the enemy, like part of the enemy headquarters. But you're completely naked, and so you play this entire level with just like pixelated butt in front and crotch area. Whenever you turn around, and you just run through, and like at first you're punching people to get the first few weapons that you can. And so, but then you're just running through this house, and this building, just hosing people down, completely stark ass naked. And it's just, I don't know, like it was just so weird at some point. And then I think at one point in the game too, like something happens and people start getting turned into zombies, and you're called to rescue the town by Mayor Burt Reynolds, and you're just like, yeah, sure, this makes sense. And
I don't know what town you're living in, but that's actively where I live. I commute here every day from Burt Reynolds town, where our mayor, Burt Reynolds, is the best mayor ever.
So it was Saints Row the Third was a crazy game that I literally knew nothing about the series, just wanted to try it out. It was cheap one day at a store, and I was there, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try this out. Just wound up loving it. It was so good, but definitely dirty.
I feel
very
like
raunchy.
Beating people over the head with a purple dildo is one of those video game images that you never really lose once you've done it.
Well, because it was true to what you would expect a huge dildo to be. It wasn't straight and rigid. It was flopping all over the place. It was so great mental imagery. You're bashing people over the head with it. So it was a fun time. Smoking, what you got? What's your something blue?
Nothing.
I thought this one might be hard for you.
No,
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't allowed to buy rated M games until I became a real adult.
Well, that's fine.
And
I bought Saints Row when I was an adult.
I mean, I don't have like anything. Like I was racking my brains for this one, and I was like, they're all so PG. I don't have anything. So if you can like suggest some stuff that maybe I have played, but I genuinely don't think I have anything that would even remotely fit this category.
Something like Tekken or Unreal Tournament or something like that, with just the pure gore or something like that might work.
Actually, I do have technically one of the endings, and I think it was Tekken 3, was amazing. And I didn't really understand how out of place it was at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, wow, how did that get into a game, let alone a Tekken game? And now it's like, of course it got into Tekken, I get it now. But so in Tekken 3, one of my favorite characters was Lee Chaolan. So he had two alter egos. There was Lee, who had platinum, like silver hair, and he wore a sleeveless, tight leather blue vest and the skin tightest black leather pants ever.
Nice.
And like black combat boots. And
Jarrett's really into it.
Yeah, and he's really into it. And he was like vampire white, and he would go around beating the crap out of people. And I was like, Lee, you're the best. And then he had this equally ridiculous alter ego named Violet. And per his name, Violet had ultraviolet purple hair. He had these super cool aviator sunglasses, much like Zach's from the last episode. And he would often wear like this huge purple trench coat, still with the black leather pants. And they were both absurd. And I was like, Lee's the greatest character to ever happen to the Tekken series. And in Tekken 3, when you complete story mode, so you go through like your 10 characters, and then you eventually defeat Heihachi, who was the final boss of that series. When you beat him and you get past the credits and you get to Lee's ending video, because they all had like an ending cutscene that was like a mini short film, and you were like, this is why I play this game. So it flashes to a seaside pool resort. So it's like all of these, lawn chairs, and everybody's sunbathing, everybody's in bikinis and having a fun time. Zoom in on Lee, purple Speedo, nothing else. Purple Speedo, reclining in his chair, like sunglasses, drink in one hand, and then he like snaps his fingers, and Heihachi, also in a Speedo, recall that he's an old man, but like as buff as, it's ridiculously over buff.
Right.
So he's also in a black Speedo, but he also has on like a very Chippendale style white collar and bow tie, holding like a silver platter in one hand. He comes over and he's like, yes, sir. Like he's clearly not happy to be there. And Lee goes, 2 fingers. And like, cause that's the drink he's ordering, but it's like, that's a little overly suggestive considering that he's just asking for a drink. And Heihachi's like, yes, sir. And then he like just walks away to get to go get the drink. And it just kind of like pans out on Lee, and he's like, this is the life. And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
what? You can still go back and play that game, and it's still the ending, and it's the best.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's as close as I've gotten.
That's great.
Zach, what you got? Something blue.
Well, mine was GTA 3.
You should have
And
chimed
it's
in.
funny, when I was thinking about that, there isn't really a lot of games that I would consider like real raunchy. Like, so I thought someone was going to bring up Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh,
You know that game?
yeah, where you're like the squirrel who's like really, he's got a really bad mouth, and he like swears
really
and curses
bad
everywhere.
mouth, and there's
But that's like, what's that for? Was that N64?
It's 64.
Yeah, that's right.
Really? That made it onto a Nintendo platform.
Yeah,
That's why I think it would have been an interesting. It sounds like a really interesting game. I've never played it. Conker's
Me neither.
Bad Fur Day. I was once in a Blockbuster or something, and they had a game called BMXXX. Have you heard
Oh
of that
yeah,
game?
I've heard of that one too.
It's like BMX, but you're naked. And
Yeah.
It's like super R-rated. And then Twisted Metal Black, which I talked about a long time ago, was that's a violent and really just disturbing game, I thought. And anyone that's played Metal Black will agree. It just has a very eerie, disturbing cutscenes for everyone's finale. It's a dark game. But yeah, well, I mean, I'll go over this very briefly. I agree with everything Dylan said about GTA 3. That was a game that I got when I was, 12 or something, and I was playing it, and I was like, man, this is a dark, violent, funny, just really gritty game. And even compared, and I've mentioned this before, even compared to the other GTA games, it's maybe it's because I was younger, but there is something very moody about that game, especially compared to 5, which is vibrant LA. I mean,
Right.
gritty, Liberty City, which is New York, is just it felt very underbelly. And so does GTA 4 to a degree, but there was something about GTA 3 that really made it seem darker in a lot of ways. And Yeah, that was another game that my mom took me to get, and it was a very funny experience.
I can't remember the main character's name now in GTA 3. It's been so long, but like I do remember. I know what you're talking about. There was this feeling like, the odds were like society. The game was stacked against him a little bit, and there was always that kind of like underpinning of like, you're born in the hood and you're not going to be able to get out because that's the way the world treats you. You had that kind of feel from him.
Yeah,
and it was kind of the same with GTA 4. Like that feeling carried over into GTA 4.
I love GTA 4. I absolutely love it. And I've mentioned that GTA 5 might be my least favorite out of 3, 4, and 5.
Same here.
And even what's interesting about the beginning of 3, if I remember correctly, you are doing a job, like a bank job, or you're like, it's a cutscene, but you're getting away with money and you get double crossed. I'm pretty sure that woman shoots you, right?
That sounds familiar now. Yeah, it's
you go down an alley and a woman like shoots you and you get double crossed right from the get go, and right there it sets the whole tone of the game. Like, you can't trust anybody.
Yeah,
it's God, I love GTA 3. I really love that game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that has run through our full gambit of something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. This was a hell of a fun topic.
Dang, yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it.
Very good.
Because
Dylan,
it was pretty
rap
much,
master, topic master.
because it was pretty much
cool
just a great, other than just being like, let's talk about nostalgia. Like, it was a great way of bringing up nostalgic gaming moments and nostalgic games that we've played before. And some of these, like, man, and yeah, especially when we got to like something news and like all the ones that came up, they're like, oh, these are all great games and things like that. Like, it's a fun deep dive to be able to go back, hear about some of these other experiences, because it's interesting how we all kind of have those same moments of like beating a game with a friend that's a really hard part, or playing in a dark room, or
playing in a dark room in an unfinished basement.
Unfinished basements with the most perfect game for that of Resident Evil. You're playing in an unfinished basement and you're playing Resident Evil. Like, that's perfect. And then, having your friends come over, going over for all-nighters of Mountain Dew and snacks. It's just fun how, like, we all may play the different games, but at the end of the day, like, we all kind of have the same experience with it. And it's fun to hear everybody's stories with those that wouldn't normally come out in conversation. So,
right on.
Excellent, fun topic, sir.
Happy to contribute.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right, well, before we go, we do have our song contest for this week given to us by Michael Sandoval.
All right, I'm ready. I'm going to get this one too. I'm the master.
Can't. You have to give other people a break, a choice.
Fine.
You can't just get every one.
I can't believe I was right about Echo. That's great. Anyways, continue.
His hint is, you're too slow.
Sonic, Mania, gotta run fast, gotta go fast. I don't know how it is. Am I right?
I don't know.
2 for 2, baby.
But the hint one more time is, you're too slow. So
I assume it's the track and field game on the power pad back in the day that you had to like
Quap or QWERTY or no? Not, obviously that's what it's called. But like, doesn't it have something that has to do with? Like,
where you have to. I think it is Quap where you have to do that thing. No, I was thinking of like the track and field game where you had to like run with your feet on the power pad like that.
Man. That makes me think that it might be DDR.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nobody's talked about Dance ever on this show.
We'll have to have Sam on because she loves the Just Dance games. So we'll have to come on and just have a whole dance-isode.
Dude, DDR, the dance-isode.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we'll have to do. All right, well, in case you're not familiar with it, the song contest goes live Wednesday, 9 a.m., the day after this episode airs. We'll put a post up on Facebook and Twitter when the contest goes live. First person to correctly guess the game from which the song is chosen will be able to submit a song and hint for a future episode, just like Michael Sandoval did today. So stay tuned. Wednesday, 9 a.m., the day after this episode goes live. But with that, this draws this episode of Team Chat Podcast to a close. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Fare thee well.
To the middle of me, thousands of miles away, Zachary Parks.
Peace out.
And our wonderful guest, Dylan Biles. Excellent to have you back on the show.
Arrivederci.
And that is it. See you all next time. Stick around for the
I threw you guys off with Arrivederci.
I love the new languages. It's always fun. I never know who's going to shut it down.